Discover the incredible journey of three brothers. Touching secrets to a happy life revealed. The weight of unfulfilled dreams pressed down on Jake as he tightened a bolt in the flickering light of the garage. The musty air filled with grease and faded memories clung to his skin like a second layer. At 34, he'd become what everyone expected. The mechanic, the steady hand keeping their father's legacy alive. But in the midst of perfectly tuned engines, his insides churned with unease. Was this all he was meant to do? Day after day, he fought to keep the garage afloat, only to see it barely meet bills and debts. His father's expectations wrapped around him like barbed wire, and each lingering glance at the shop that needed more than sweat and elbow grease sent Jake spiraling into doubt. Meanwhile, Sam rattled off another legal clause over the phone, tapping his pen against the polished table in his towering office. Despite the suit that screamed success, he felt small and unsure. Hours evaporated in a blur of corporate jargon and competition, draining his spirit. As a 30-year-old corporate lawyer, he had all the accolades, but his heart felt like it was suffocating, performing in a world that equated value with money. It wasn't the life he had envisioned. It was a relentless race he couldn't seem to escape. And worse, every time he returned home to see Jake's weary but resolute determination, it twisted his gut, a reminder of their shared roots and the diverging paths they'd taken. Alex, the youngest, stood behind the counter of the coffee shop, pouring lattes with an automatic motion that betrayed the vivid world he longed to create. At 25, he submerged himself in art, but the weight of his brother's ambition felt overwhelming. It was as if each stroke on canvas was tainted with their successes. His heart raced with the desire to break free, but the fear of being labeled a failure loomed darker than any paintbrush he could wield. What could he possibly create that would be worthy enough to stand beside their achievements? Before they could gather to mourn their father, they were caught in a whirlwind of discovery, the hidden legacy, the family property. To Sam, it represented wealth and status. To Jake, the lifeblood of their father's presence. And to Alex, a reminder of how far removed he was from his brothers. Tension knotted in the air as old grudges resurfaced, each brother's voice an echo of past pains. Jake's frustration boiled over, questioning Sam's endless grind and accusing Alex of drifting away from reality. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The words hung in the air, heavy and unnerving. Sam clenched his jaw, feeling the sting of rejection. He was more than a sellout. He was a man teetering on the brink of burnout, alienated from the family's ideals. Alex lashed out, bearing the emotional wounds of confinement, his voice shaky yet clear. The fight among them erupted like a broken dam, voices overlapping with deep-seated pain. In that electrifying moment, as breaths quickened and accusations slung like daggers, the brothers stood at a precipice. Secrets hovered like fog, threatening to engulf them in distrust. Just as Alex picked up his brush, ready to capture their fractured bond in an expression of hope, a revelation about their father shattered their fragile unity, casting a long shadow over what they thought they knew. Would it drive them further apart? Or could this newfound truth bring them back together? The answer lingered ominously in the air, a question unasked and unanswered. There. Relationships hanging on the edge of uncertainty. Jake felt a tight grip on his chest, a mix of anger and frustration swirling within him like oil in a dirty engine. The revelation about their father lingered, wrapping itself around his consciousness like a vine choking the life out of a tree. The more he tried to grasp the implications, the more fragmented his perception became. He moved mechanically, tightening bolts, but his mind was racing with questions that had no answers. Why hadn't their father shared this with them? What else had he hidden? Across town in his high-rise office, Sam struggled to maintain his composure. He had built his identity upon the notion of success lived for his career, but now it felt as if that foundation was crumbling. The weight of expectations, both familial and self-imposed, pressed heavily on him. He wondered whether all those late nights spent filing legal briefs were worth it. Sam's phone buzzed with notifications, reminders of meetings that felt increasingly irrelevant. How could he continue pushing for promotions when he felt like a ghost in his own life? Meanwhile, Alex stood still behind the coffee shop counter, fingers trembling around a steaming cup of espresso. It was a mundane sight, yet he felt on the brink of artistic epiphany. He knew that this newfound revelation about their father's past had the potential to ignite creativity like never before, but doubt tainted his vision. Creativity should flow organically, but competing against his brother's success seemed like drowning in a tidal wave. The weight of their legacy loomed large over his aspirations, suffocating his spirit. What if he poured his heart into art only to be met with ridicule? As they prepared to gather at the family home, each brother wrestled with the conflicting emotions of disappointment and hope. Jake arrived first, mechanically unlocking the front door, his fingers lingering on the handle like touching forbidden territory. The house felt different, an empty shell echoing with memories. He walked through the living space, where laughter and warmth had once resided. Each step amplified the chasm in his heart, one he feared might never be repaired. Sam, too, felt the nostalgia creep in as he stepped over the threshold. The familiar scent of old books and worn furniture reminded him of the times they spent as boys, building dreams rather than fortresses of expectations. Yet even this warmth was tainted by the shadows of their recent argument. He formulated half-hearted apologies in his head, but words often failed him in the face of emotional upheaval. Alex arrived last, an artist with paint-splattered jeans concealing an impassioned soul, yet feeling like an imposter in a world dominated by his brother's tangible achievements. The revelation slipped from his thoughts like wax from a candle melting, but ultimately arriving at something transformative. As he entered the room, he felt their eyes land on him, weighing him down with unspoken judgments. Would they see him as a brother or merely a shadow of their expectations? Tension crackled in the air like a live wire as they exchanged uncertain glances. Each brother silently prayed for resolution, but each held their own piece of the puzzle tightly in hand, hesitant to lay it bare. The weight of their father's secret hung unacknowledged, yet it felt like the very ground on which they stood could shift any moment. With each hesitant heartbeat, Jake realized something crucial, something booming in the silence. They needed to confront their father's legacy together. They would either be swallowed by the secrets or find a way to redefine their paths in the shadows of the past. Gathering courage, he finally broke the tension with a simple question, one that would set the stage for their next confrontation, a probing test of their brotherhood. What did a life built on secrets really mean for each of us? His inquiry hung heavy in the air, an invitation to a reckoning, but would they accept it, or flee once again? The silence that followed Jake's question threatened to crush him. It was as if the air had thickened, pulling at their throats while leaving unspoken thoughts to swirl chaotically. Sam's brow furrowed in concentration, his thoughts racing at the intersection of familial obligation and self-interest. To say our father led a secret life is an understatement, he finally said, voice low but firm. What do we do with that? Alex shifted, his fingers still twitching around the cup in his hand. It's not just about him, he interjected, his voice fragile. It's about what these secrets mean for us. The words felt heavy as they hung between them, bringing a slight tremor to his resolve. Every shared memory threatened to drown his artistic drive, and he quietly worried if he was ready to confront what lay ahead. Jake took a deep breath, unleashing a current of determination that cut through his confusion. If we don't face this together, we'll remain shooting in the dark. We have a chance to uncover the truth and redefine our future. The notion of something fresh and transformative electrified him. Perhaps this discovery could empower them to carve their paths, free from the arid grip of their father's legacy. But first, they needed to brave the waters of confrontation. Sam's anguish about his career and place in the world seemed to seep into his tone. What if knowing more only complicates our relationship? His voice was taut with underlying fear, afraid of losing the fragile thread that connected them as brothers. Eyeing Sam, Jake pondered how tightly fear held him prisoner. Complication is part of growth. Staying silent only feeds resentment. Look at us, we let our father's choices dictate how we live. Don't we owe it to ourselves to be more than just reflections of his past? Emotion rippled across Sam's face. There was something so vulnerable in his struggle that Jake felt a twinge of urgency to guard him. You talk about growth, but what if it leads to chaos? Look at our history, the damage done. I'm not saying it's easy, Jake countered, his resolve intensifying. But perhaps this is our opportunity not just to accept the truth but to redefine our roles. If Alex can find courage in his art, and I can find meaning in mechanics, maybe we can construct something remarkable together. As he spoke, something kindled within Alex, an ember igniting the potential for creativity long thought snuffed out by fear. Realizing he had more to offer than the ghost of expectations, he felt a newfound determination bubbling to the surface. Maybe this is a chance for me, too, he admitted, stirring his words with a conviction he wasn't sure he possessed. What if we draw inspiration from what was hidden? With each brother's confession echoing off the walls, the past felt more like a weight they could lift rather than a chain that bound them. Their hearts raced as courage unfolded in the face of uncertainty. The facade of their collective grief started to crack, revealing a flicker of hope peeking through. Yet, beneath the surface, Jake felt the gnawing worry about whether the legacy they were forced to confront could ever be transformed into something positive. Would their intertwined histories repair them or scatter them further apart? As the energy in the room shifted, a sense of unity began to weave between them. Yet Jake remained uncertain whether strength would emerge from vulnerability or descend into chaos. Without fully grasping what lay ahead, he made a decision in that moment to rally them to face the truth about their father, whatever the implications. Let us find out what he hid, he urged. Let us face it together. Little did they know, their willingness to confront the past would soon thrust them into a confrontation with unexpected truths and personal revelations that threatened to unravel everything they understood about family and themselves. What shadows awaited them beyond the secrets, lurking just beneath the familiar facade of their shared lives? Jake felt the weight of his own determination as shadows danced across the walls of their family home. They had begun to break the silence, but the impending truth loomed like an unseen specter. He leaned against the table, recalling the conversations laced with familial tension, the weight of their father's absence palpable. It was a silence that had stretched for years, thickening the air with unspoken grief. But now the brothers had taken the first step toward unraveling it. Do you think we'll regret this? Sam's question hung in the air, pulling Jake back from his thoughts. The uncertainty in his brother's voice struck a nerve, awakening the nagging doubt resting deep within him. Would they ultimately wish they had left the past buried? It's not regret I'm worried about, Jake replied, keeping his voice steady. It's the regret of not trying to understand what we came from. The purpose of knowing is not to accuse but to learn, to evolve. In the clattering sound of cups on their table, Alex finally spoke up, his voice barely above a whisper. We don't even know where to start. His fingers fidgeted, his creative spirit still tied to uncertainty, as if torn between his artistic aspirations and the looming reality of confronting their lineage. Maybe we start with the things no one talked about, Jake suggested, a spark igniting within him. The hidden places in the house where secrets might lie, letters, photos, things we've pushed aside. Let us explore those first. At that moment, determination surged within him, compelling him to fuel his brother's nascent resolve. They needed to unravel the truth not just for themselves, but for the potential they had as individuals. It could be a journey toward rediscovering not just the story of their father, but the identity each of them had lost in the shadows of his secrecy. As the three began to sift through dusty drawers and forgotten corners of the home, Jake felt something shift. Gone was the fear of what they might unearth. It was replaced by an exhilaration that resonated in his chest. With every item uncovered, he could see the specters of his father's choices reforming into shapes that could lead to something new. What if we find something terrible? Sam uttered hesitantly, his voice fracture-prone. as he sifted through a stack of papers that smelled of age and neglect. Maybe, Jake acknowledged, but we can't let fear paralyze us. Each revelation is a chance to understand ourselves better and redefine who we choose to be moving forward. That matters more than the comfort of ignorance. They found journals with worn spines, brittle pages filled with hastily scrawled notes, desperate wishes, and unresolved conflicts. With each revelation came a wave of emotions: anger at their father, regret for the missed connections, and the ultimate awareness that they had a chance to right wrongs their father never faced. As the evening waned and shadows stretched into the corners of the dimly lit room, they fell silent, processing their discoveries. It was a palpable moment. Each brother looked into the other's eyes, finding reflections of shared resolve and fragmented fears. The realization of forming their own paths burst within Jake, igniting a profound sense of purpose. "We can't ignore this anymore," he said resolutely. "Not our past, not our potential. It's time to reshape the legacy." Yet, deep within, a cold chill traced his spine. They could uncover truths that might fracture the delicate bond they were trying to reinforce. With a flicker of doubt, he wondered if facing their father's secret existence would only unveil deeper fissures in their relationship. As the door creaked open, leading to the dim corridor that held more remnants of their father's life, a realization hit Jake. The ghosts of the past could either entangle them further or sever the chains holding them prisoner to bitterness. "Are you prepared?" he asked, his voice tinged with urgency and resolve. With the resolve holding firm among them, the door awaited their push. The journey into the shadows of their shared lineage called upon each brother to confront the dissonance of their identity with courage. As they stood at the threshold of unearthing the truth, they all knew, deep down, the moment of truth had drawn near, and its revelations might reshape everything they believed about each other and themselves. What awaited them on the other side, in that dimly lit corridor, threatened to force them to confront their deepest fears and challenges. Jake stepped through the threshold first, emotions swirling in tension with each cautious footfall down the dim corridor. The air grew denser, carrying the scent of aged wood and memories long sealed. It was a space that seemed to breathe with untold stories, and he felt a wave of nervous energy ripple through him. "Stick together," he whispered, sensing that the darkness might swirl back at them if they let their resolve falter. As they moved deeper, the hallway opened into a small room, filled with shadow and soft echoes of the past. Dust motes danced, illuminated beneath the faint light that filtered through a single, grimy window. Here lay the heart of their father's hidden world, a forgotten study cluttered with paper, books, and framed photographs, all lying as still as the secrets they held. "Wow, I forgot about this place," Alex murmured, brushing a finger along the edge of a dusty desk. His voice was tinged with awe, and Jake mirrored that sentiment, the significance sinking in. This was more than a room. It was a vault of their family's history, a nexus where their past collided with the present. Jake wasted no time. "Let us divide and conquer," he said, feeling a surge of urgency. "Grab anything that looks significant: photos, anything that seems like a clue." His brothers nodded, each venturing into the dim corners of the room. As Jake rifled through a stack of papers, he felt the weight of curiosity turn into anxiety. What if they stumbled upon something that shattered their perceptions of their father? Among the papers, he found letters stained with time yet brimming with emotion. As he opened the first one, his heart raced. It was written by a woman whose name was unfamiliar to him. The words spilled out like a well of untapped history: tender confessions, longing, and acknowledgement of a life shared apart from their family. A blend of anger and despair coursed through him. Who was this woman, and why had his father hidden her existence? "Jake!" Sam's exclamation interrupted his thoughts, and Jake turned to see his brother holding an old photograph, a familiar summer scene from their childhood together, along with a stranger's silhouette lurking in the background. "Look at this. Who is that?" Sam frowned, confusion creasing his brow. "It can't be," Jake faltered, feeling the pieces of his father's life shift ominously as the unfamiliar figure loomed larger in their collective understanding. They reunited at the desk, each finding urgency and clarity through the chaos. "This isn't just about him," Jake said, summoning the resolve to confront this unsettling truth. It's about us. What kind of legacy do we want? Do we accept this? The question hung heavily in the air, the tension palpable. Were they destined to repeat history? Could they sidestep the hidden patterns forged by choices made in silence? We have the power to redefine our story, he urged, meeting each of their eyes. In that instant, Jake discovered a wellspring of unexpected courage. He was not just confronting the shadows of their father's legacy. He was challenging their own assumptions of what familial ties meant. Perhaps this was the beginning of their reclamation not only of the family name but of their individual selves. Suddenly, the realization struck him. We can use these stories, our father's truths, as a guide to becoming who we truly are meant to be, not who we were dictated to be. Alex's expression softened, the gears of creativity sparking anew as the blueprints of potential unfolded within him. But another thought clawed at the edges of Jake's mind. As each revelation crept into view, so did their connections falter, revealing stark fractures previously masked by familial loyalty. Would they emerge stronger or more fractured from these explorations? With a pang, he acknowledged that every layered truth brought them closer to a reckoning. We're digging ourselves into uncharted territory, he declared, biting the words out. Then let us embrace it, Sam said defiantly, pushing past his uncertainty, motivated by a newfound strength. We can't turn back now. Jake nodded, the weight of their choices looming, but he felt an undeniable thrill, the promise of transformation tantalizingly close. As they continued to unearth the remnants of their father's life, each item pulling them further into the murky waters ahead, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that a deeper confrontation loomed. What if the essence of their father's life was built on more than just omission? He hoped they were ready because they were about to plunge into the core of their family's truths, and the impact could ripple outward unexpectedly, reshaping their futures in ways they never imagined. The moment of confrontation was near. Would they rise to meet whatever emerged from the depths of their father's shadows, or would the past enchain them in bitterness forever? Jake felt his heart race as he sifted through the letters, the tension in the room growing more palpable with each revelation. Each note seemed like a puzzle piece, beckoning him to confront the reality of his father's life. Who was this woman? The question spiraled in his mind like an unresolved riddle, demanding answers that flickered just out of reach as he continued to read. He felt the room's shadows stretch and deepen, reflecting his internal turmoil. He tucked a letter into his jacket pocket, a silent promise to return to it later as he turned toward his brothers. They moved in a fluid dance of discovery, knives drawn against the truth. Maybe we're looking at this all wrong, Alex suggested, his voice a quiet spark in the thick air. The burden is heavy, sure, but what if we could understand him better? Maybe it'll help us understand ourselves too. The idea bounced around Jake's mind, igniting a flicker of hope amidst the chaos of their findings. Understanding could lead to healing, Jake conceded, even as a sense of foreboding crept along his spine. What if what lay beneath was too heavy to bear? They turned their attention to an old, leather-bound journal resting against a dusty stack of books. The edges were frayed, hinting at a life spent in reflection. Jake reached for it instinctively, feeling an inexplicable connection to whatever words rested within. Sitting cross-legged on the floor, he opened it and began to read. The cursive letters flowed with an intensity that felt almost alive. Their father's struggles, ambitions, and fears emerged from the pages, revealing a man cloaked in dreams that paralleled yet diverged from their own. But alongside those dreams was a recurring theme, a battle against perceived inadequacy, the constant drive to prove himself. Jake's mind raced. Was our father in search of redemption? Was that why he never spoke openly about his past? An unsettling thought came crashing in. Perhaps their father's silence was less about shame and more about survival. He glanced at Sam, whose brow furrowed in deep concentration. It's like he didn't believe he was worthy of us, Sam finally whispered, his voice breaking through Jake's thoughts. We should have known. The revelation struck with the weight of leaden bricks. Why had they taken their father's presence for granted? The brothers shared a moment of profound tension, each feeling a shared desire to break down the walls that had encased their family's emotional landscape for too long. "We need to confront him when this is over," Jake asserted, the resolve sharpening his features. "He can deny us no longer." His brothers nodded, but Jake sensed their uncertainty, fear lurking just beneath the surface. What had they unearthed? What shadows of their father's life would they have to face? And what would that mean for their own identities? Jake looked at the journal again, filling his lungs with courage as he turned to the next page. As he read deeper, sentences began to ripple with revelations, detailing hidden conflicts and existential crises, moments where their father grappled with choices that could have altered the family's trajectory entirely. The weight of hope and despair intertwined like a complicated tapestry, where every stitch represented a decision made in darkness. "Jake," Alex's voice broke in, pulling him from the intimate depths of their father's world. "Do you think we can really change what this all means for us?" "Only if we confront it," Jake replied, a sense of urgency threading his words. "If we're going to redefine our legacy, we must first face these truths head-on. It's the only way." With his heart pounding, Jake turned a final page and gasped. There, scribbled in an erratic scrawl, was a name that sent chills coursing through him. It was a name he recognized, one attached to more than just memories, a ghost of their father's past that spoke of intersecting fates and bitter ironies. "Guys, we've got to take this seriously," he said, adrenaline pulsing. "There are mysteries here that go beyond just what we knew about him." The moment of clarity struck them collectively. No longer were they mere brothers discovering family history. They were poised at the precipice of transformative confrontation. Jake felt an urgency swell within him, propelling him down a path of self-discovery and familial reckoning. The weight of their father's legacy was now theirs to bear. But how would they respond to the truths yet unspoken? Would they embrace the complex puzzle of their lineage or let it fracture the very foundation they stood upon? It was time to dive deeper into the murkiness of their father's past. Time to uncover secrets that could either bind them closer or unravel what little they had left. One thing was certain: they were running out of time. The confrontation loomed, and Jake could sense it. A reckoning was brewing, one where they would either reclaim their legacy or be consumed by it. Jake's hands trembled as he closed the journal, the glimpses of their father's world swirling in his mind like debris in a storm. The air was heavy with unspoken words, and he felt an insistent push from within, an urge to peel back layers of ignorance and confront the man who had kept these truths buried for too long. With newfound resolve, he turned to his brothers, their faces reflecting a mixture of hope and fear. "We need to talk to him, not just about the past, but about ourselves," he stated firmly, looking into each of their eyes, searching for agreement. The aim was clear: to face the echoes of their family history and examine how those echoes shaped their identities. Alex clenched his fists. "But what if he shuts us out? What if he's not ready to talk about this?" Jake could feel the knot tightening in his chest. This wasn't just about their father. It was about their own identities, their future. "Then we push through. If we don't confront him now, we risk letting these shadows poison our lives." The brothers nodded slowly, weighing the implications of their collective commitment. They needed to solidify their bond, to confront the man whose silence had built an impenetrable wall around them. They devised a plan, a framework intended to guide their conversation without overwhelming their father. It would begin with the letters, the revelations they had uncovered, and culminate in a vulnerability that might allow them to connect on a deeper level. The discussion would have to be framed not as an accusation but as a quest for understanding, an invitation for their father to join them in untangling the webs of the past. Later that evening, Jake found himself in his room, the scent of old wood and dust mingling with his apprehension. His gaze drifted to the letter that was still nestled in his jacket pocket. He pulled it out, the worn edges whispering secrets as he unfolded it. The words on the page resonated: longing, regret, a search for connection, the very essence of humanity. A woman from his past, he murmured to himself, feeling corners of doubt creep in. Who was she? What role did she play in their father's silence? Would they ever have the chance to learn about her? As he contemplated the looming confrontation, the weight of this uncertainty felt like a crossroad. They could choose to remain stagnant, their relationship forever dictated by shadows of the past, or they could lean into the discomfort, risking vulnerability for connection. The drive to change the narrative surged within him like a current, pushing him forward. Clara's face flickered into his mind, a memory of laughter, the warmth of family dinners. We deserve to understand, Jake resolved, letting the determination thrum through his core. In the ensuing days, tension simmered among the brothers, an electric energy waiting for the right moment to ignite. They began collecting thoughts and insights from the journal points to emphasize during their eventual talk. The act of planning their approach morphed into a quieter form of introspection, forcing each of them to confront their own layers of emotional detritus. Would they seek forgiveness for misplaced resentments? Would they demand truths wrapped in the painful packaging of their fatherless choices? As the day of reckoning approached, the telephone rang in their home, a sound jolting Jake from his mental reverie. His heart quickened as he answered. The familiar voice on the line filled him with a mix of surprise and anxiety. "Jake, it's me, it's time we talk," their father stated, the gravity of his words hanging in the air like a gavel falling in court. A mix of anticipation and dread coursed through him, amplifying his internal battle. Was this the moment they had prepared for, or was it a precursor to even deeper confrontations? Jake felt that familiar urgency swell again, propelling him toward the guidance they had sought. "We'll need to be ready for anything," he whispered to himself, adrenaline sparking. It wasn't just about revealing the past, it was about owning their present and building a future that didn't shackle them to their father's fears. This conversation could either emerge as a healing catalyst or a point of rupture. Jake steeled himself. He could no longer distance himself from the complicated tapestry of their family. Was he willing to confront not just a father, but the legacy ingrained in him? The reckoning was upon them, and for better or worse, they would emerge transformed. With a surge of determination, he stepped into the living room, ready to face the impending truth. What awaited them on the other side of this moment could change everything. The question lingered in the air, unspoken. Were they ready to embrace the full complexity of their family's past, or would it be the undoing of their very foundations? The air in the living room was tense, punctuated by the ticking clock that seemed to amplify each moment away from the inevitable conversation. Jake's heart raced. He exchanged unsure glances with Alex and Tyler, each man bedecked in heavy cloaks of anxiety. Would their father be willing to peel back his own layers, or would he fortify the walls even higher, casting them into deeper shadows? Just as the room began to stifle him, the door creaked open. There stood their father, the lines on his face sharper, his eyes shadowed. Jake's breath snagged in his throat. This was the man they'd hoped to understand better, yet a part of him longed to retreat, to hide from the rawness of what they were all about to undertake. "Thanks for coming," Jake managed to say, his voice steady but low, as if raising it would somehow shatter the frail sense of calm that had been negotiated in the silence. Their father stepped inside, his posture rigid. "You wanted to talk?" The question hung in the air, a challenge disguised as inquiry. Jake felt the weight of his brother's expectations settle on him. This was his moment to lead, or at least to begin. "Yes, we found some things about the past, about you. We think it's time we faced those things together." Their father's expression darkened at the mention of the past, but Jake forged ahead, his voice clearer now, propelled by the conversations they'd crafted over the last few days. "We want to understand. About you, about what happened with Mom and the woman from your past. We think those answers are important for us, too." Tension crackled in the air, but Jake could see a flicker of something in his father's eyes. Surprise. Perhaps? This was not the reaction he had anticipated. He pressed on. "You taught us to face our fears, to confront the shadows. We want to do that with you." For a heartbeat, silence enveloped them all. Tyler shifted restlessly. "All we're asking is for honesty. We need to know who we are, and how the choices you've made have impacted that." Their father sighed, visibly torn. "It's not that simple," he replied, his voice gravelly as the truth behind his fatigue began to surface. "Some memories are painful. I've tried to protect you, to shield you from my mistakes." Jake's resolve quaked. This was the moment, the fragile space in which years of silence could either fracture or mold a new understanding. You might have meant well, he countered, but in trying to protect us, you've built walls we can't break down without the truth. In that space, his words sank into the atmosphere like stones into water, creating ripples of uncertainty. For the first time, Jake felt something shift. There was a vulnerability in his father's gaze, a tiny fissure in the armor forged by years of regret and isolation. I know I haven't been honest, but I have my reasons, their father said, his voice barely above a whisper, as if he feared the admission could endanger him. What I did wasn't just about you. It affected everyone involved. Jake felt the crack in his father's armor widen. This was the chance to unearth buried emotions and lay bare the skeletons of a fractured past. We can't heal without understanding. None of us can. The room bristled with urgency as Jake laid his conviction bare. This was about much more than knowledge. It was about lineage, legacy, and the power dynamics that tethered them all. With each second, it became increasingly clear that this negotiation of silence and pain could either forge an unbreakable bond or unravel them further. Did Jake have the emotional tools to guide this conversation toward a realm of shared clarity? He needed to know if his father could indeed confront the ghosts residing in his heart. His thoughts raced, veering between optimism and apprehension. What was their father hiding? And more importantly, was he ready to share it? As Jake pondered the stakes involved, a deeper sense of fear washed over him. Whatever the truth, just know we stand together in this, he implored, his voice thick with emotion. The response remained elusive, the room swollen with anticipation. Would their father embrace this moment as a chance for redemption, or retreat further into the recesses of secrecy that had shielded them for too long? Jake's heart drummed louder, and in that fragile interlude, time felt suspended. Jake's breath caught as the silence threatened to become unbearable. The faint flicker of hope that had ignited within him was battling the daunting shadows cast by uncertainty. Their father seemed to waver, his eyes darting away, as if afraid to confront the truth he had buried for so long. Dad, Jake urged gently, trying to bridge the chasm between fear and honesty. We're not here to attack you. We want to understand. Their father's lips pressed into a thin line, a fortress that seemed impenetrable. Jake could feel Tyler's tension beneath his own, a collective impatience simmering in the air. Clear emotions surged within him, each layer of thought threading through his mind like lightning, illuminating the darkness of unspoken words. I know you have your reasons, Jake continued, his focus borrowing strength from his burgeoning resilience. But the longer we stay in the shadows, the harder it will be for us all. We can't evolve as a family without facing the truth, however painful it might be. The comment hung like a breathless note in the air. Their father appeared to stiffen at the mention of family, a word that had carried both warmth and bitterness for too long. You talk about evolution as if it's simple, he replied, his voice edged with a mix of disbelief and resentment. You don't know what you're asking. Jake felt another push of urgency surge within him. Perhaps this wasn't merely about asking questions. It was about teaching their father to feel again, to open up. It was about dismantling the fear that had held him captive for years. Show us then, he asserted, his voice rising with uncontained emotion. Show us what you're afraid of. We can carry it with you. Their father's features transformed, and for the first time, vulnerability surfaced in the deep creases of his brow. You really don't understand, he said. The past, it's not just memories. It's consequences. Pain has a way of echoing through generations. Jake's heart raced as he considered the implications of those words. His stomach twisted, caught somewhere between dread and excitement at what might come next. Maybe those echoes can lead us to healing, he replied, as if daring his father to reconsider. Facing the pain could be redemptive, not just for their father but for them all. Tyler leaned in slightly. The tension radiating from his body signaled his desire for action. Together, they needed to pry open the gate of the past and sift through its chaos. Every choice you made not only affected you, but it impacted us, shaped us. If there's a lesson in it, we want to learn. The atmosphere thickened, and Jake could almost hear the wrestling of thoughts in his father's mind. And if the lessons are too heavy to bear? His father asked, his voice cracking slightly. What if it destroys us? Jake didn't flinch. He had been grappling with that very question since the revelations began. We need to at least try. As your sons, we're ready to shoulder the burden. Hiding only keeps us from becoming who we're meant to be. Their father stared at Jake, a battle of recognition and reluctance playing out in his eyes. The clock continued its rhythmic ticking, each second another reminder of the urgency between them. Jake could feel the fabric of their relationship stretching to its limit, threadbare yet on the verge of rebirth. What do you want to know? Their father finally breathed, his tone layered with resignation and something deeper, perhaps the first hint of surrender. Jake's pulse surged with exhilaration and fear. Now came the time to dive into the abyss they had long skirted. Tell us the story, the real one, about Mom and your life before us. As those words left his mouth, Jake felt a shift coursing through him. There was no turning back, but in this moment of radical honesty, he recognized that apprehension was giving way to an unexpected courage coursing through every fiber of his being. But was he really prepared for the details that lay ahead? Was this journey going to usher in wounds deeper than any of them could handle? As the questions emerged, Jake realized the next phase of their exploration held perilous possibilities more than family secrets. It hinted at the complexities of love, betrayal, and the painful yet crucial uncovering of who they were meant to become. With a deep breath, he mentally steeled himself. The answers were waiting in the shadowy corridors of their history, a labyrinth filled with the ghosts of their choices yet to be mined for treasure. Would his father finally embrace this chance for redemption? Or would they all pay the price for the darkness left unexplored? The room was thick with tension as Jake, Sam, and Alex sat in a circle, eyes fixed on their father, who stared blankly at the muted carpet. A world of pain and secrets held tightly within him. The demand for truth hung like a gavel in the air, and at last, their father took a deep breath. You want to know about your mother, and yes, there was a woman from my past. But the truth is far more complex than I ever expected it to be. As he began to unravel the story, Jake felt each word weave through him like a lifeline, pulling him toward both understanding and deeper angst. Their father's voice wavered, not just from age or strain, but from an inarticulate yearning for connection that had long been stifled. My life before you, I was lost, searching for direction, he confessed, eyes glistening. Your mother was my anchor, and yet I found myself drawn to someone else, a woman who offered a different kind of solace, even if it was fleeting. Each admission pushed through the barrier their silence had built, causing Jake to process layers of resentment and empathy he'd just begun to explore. Jake shared quick glances with his brothers, words unspoken yet palpable in the air. For every moment of anger toward their father, there emerged an understanding of his flaws, a shared humanity that intensified their resolve. Their father continued, revealing his regrets with nervous honesty. I thought I could shield you from my choices, but it was a mistake. The secrets will always surface. I'm sorry for not trusting you enough with the truth. The revelation felt heavy with both sadness and unexpected relief. As Jake listened, he realized that this was not merely about unearthing their father's past, it represented an unveiling of their own identities, hidden beneath the weight of expectation and legacy. While every word of their father's story echoed through the confines of the room, Jake began to experience a shift within himself. The anger and frustration that once consumed him dissipated, replaced with compassion. He saw their father as a flawed human being rather than merely a figure of authority cloaked in judgment. You've carried this alone for too long, Jake finally said, meeting his father's gaze. The shadows can't define us anymore. We need to share this burden as brothers and as a family. His voice rang with conviction, signaling a seismic shift in their dynamic. The brothers were not just executors of family legacy. They were caretakers of their father's story, paving a path toward understanding. The air felt lighter, and Sam leaned forward, his expression softened by the realization of what it meant to be both sons and allies. What you teach us through your vulnerabilities will guide us through our own. This is a chance for all of us to heal and forge our own identities. Alex, too, nodded in agreement, feeling a sense of liberation wash over him. In understanding you, Dad, we can finally understand ourselves. Each heartbeat echoed the possibility of reconciliation, the transformative power of unveiling the past, one that could birth their individual aspirations rather than stifle them. With those tentative yet firm declarations, Jake felt a deep-seated confidence bloom within him. They were no longer trapped in the shackles of their father's secrecy. They were unfurling their wings from a past defined by shadows. As the conversation continued and emotions flowed freely, Jake found himself achieving something he had once deemed impossible. He was setting boundaries, expressing his truths, and reshaping his legacy. With every revelation, he was no longer just piecing together a fractured family history. He was sculpting a new narrative where courage and vulnerability could coexist. When the discussion finally culminated, Jake felt a sense of accomplishment he had never imagined. They had confronted their past, wrestled with its implications, and through it all, emerged with a renewed bond and understanding. Embracing their father's truths ignited something in him, a solid confidence in the choices he would make moving forward. Competence rooted in open communication and emotional authenticity. In the days following that pivotal conversation, Jake decided to expand the family garage, transforming it into a community hub where stories could be shared and crafting classes offered. It was a tangible manifestation of the deeper connection they had forged. He proved to himself and his brothers that they were all capable of leaving behind restrictive legacies while carving new paths for themselves. As Sam gained newfound clarity in his law career, aligning his work with philanthropic missions, and Alex began showcasing his art, each canvas bursting with the stories of their family, the brothers collectively thrived in a world they had redefined. Ultimately, Jake stood tall, proud of his progress and ready to embrace his future without fear tethering him back. The brothers were no longer shadows of their father's legacy. They were three men whose identities unfurled as individuals, each choosing paths of their own, while still intertwined in the warmth of brotherhood. This was transformation. The legacy of their past had not broken them. It had reshaped them into something resilient, something beautiful, a family that understood the strength found not just in secrets, but in the courageous confrontation of their truths. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It really makes a difference. Comment with your reactions and theories about this extraordinary ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.